I can remember as a little boy coming home to my Italian mom and opening the door and being hit by a wall of smell, and that smell was garlic. And as I would step into the apartment, the garlic was dripping off of the walls and dripping off of the curtains, and it was just permeated everything all throughout the air. And there was my 5 foot tall, 200 pound Italian mama hunched over the stove, stirring the sauce. Jimmy, I'm making the meatballs a special just for you. Now, Mom had a special ingredient in her meatballs. You have the meat, you've got Parmesan cheese, egg, breadcrumbs, salt, pepper, some parsley, and you usually just roll those up and drop them into the sizzling hot oil. But Mom always told me, Jimmy, I put the special ingredient in the meatball for you. I put the love in the meatball. So as she put the love in the meatballs and rolled them up, she dropped them into the sizzling hot olive oil. And you have to watch it. When you're making meatballs, you've got to watch it till it's just the right brown on one side. You flip it over to the other side, and then it's got to be just the right brown because you want it crispy on the outside and still chewy on the inside. And the best way to eat meatballs is when it comes right out of the fryer and you're popping it in your hands up and down, trying to let it cool off so it doesn't burn your mouth. And then you pop it in your mouth. Pop! And you slowly chew it and swallow it. And you let the garlic start to ooze through your pores. These are the tasty meatballs. Now, Mom always seemed to have a big wooden spoon in her hands, but maybe it was just because she was so small. But the spoon had another purpose besides just to stir the sauce. And in Italy, they called that when you misbehaved, they called it toto, when you got a spanking. I can remember so many times my mom chasing me, Jimmy, you come here right now, I give you toto. Did she think I was crazy? Why would I come there to get Toto? But then she would threaten me. She would say, you see that nice policeman over there? If you not come here right now, he's gonna put you in the jail, and you will never, never, never have my meatball again. So I'd come over for my Toto, my spanking. I probably deserved it. Now, if my mom just gave the spanking like normal people, that might be okay. But my mom did something that I like to call speaking the spank. And maybe your mom did this. So as I bend over for my spanking. Didn't I tell you never, 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 never? Jimmy? What was it you did again? I hit my sister with the Wonder Woman action figure. Didn't I tell you never, never, never hit your sister with the Wonder Woman action figure? Oh, maybe I should have just said the bat. So Mom would give us Toto when we needed it, but she loved us. There was lots of love in an Italian family. You get hugs all the time, kisses all the time. I mean, you'll hug and kiss strangers on the street. I've been given some strange looks before from doing that myself, so I don't recommend it for people. Lots of love from my 5 foot tall Italian mom. Not so much love from my dad. I was terrified of my dad. I mean, I had some really good things in my life. I had my sister Mimi. I call it the 3 M's. So I had Mimi, I had my best friend next door, Monty, and of course, meatballs. And those filled my life all the time. And Monty and I and Mimi would play in the backyard. I'm with my dog Snoopy. Snoopy was a beagle like from the Peanuts cartoon. And we just loved playing with Snoopy. Monty and I would make our moms upset at us because we would use the bathroom on the tree just like Snoopy did. And moms, for some reason, don't like that. Dads are fine with it, but moms don't like it so much. So I remember one time my dad put me and Snoopy in the car, and he kept driving. He drove past the corner store. You know, we had convenience stores even back in the 70s, but they were much smaller and usually run by someone in the neighborhood. The corner store that I would sing for the proprietor, and he would give us these little pieces of chocolate, past the shops in my neighborhood, past the school I went to. And it, as a 5-year-old, it just seemed like we were going way out in the country, and it seemed like a really long trip to me. And we stopped at some place, some secluded spot, and my dad opened the door. Snoopy jumped out. He was all excited because he had new grass to sniff and roll around in. But as he was rolling around and playing in the grass, my dad closed the door and took off. I was worried. What would happen to Snoopy? How would he eat? How would he find his way home? But I was too terrified to ask my dad anything. It wasn't because of this one thing, but because my dad, my father, who I should have been able to look up to, he had a problem. He liked to beat up my mom. I remember tossing and turning in bed as I would hear my mom screaming and begging and pleading with my dad to leave her alone and let her be and to quit beating her. And then the next morning, after a restless night of not being able to sleep, I would see my mom bruised and battered. And although he never laid a hand on me, I was terrified of him. And I think he knew that he was struggling with these demons. His previous wife had committed suicide a couple of years before he met my mom. She probably had been through the same things. And at some point, I guess he realized he couldn't deal with his demons. And he put me and Mimi and my mom on a plane. We had nothing but one suitcase each. And we went to Italy, Naples, Italy, where my mom is from. Now, I didn't realize it at the time because our definitions have changed, but I was homeless. Not homeless like living under a bridge and scrounging in the trash cans for food. That's more severe than what I had. But homeless where we would live with one relative for 2 months, and then we'd go to someone else for 3 weeks, and then we'd go to somebody else for a couple of months. And a couple of times we lived with my I'm not proud of this part of my mom, but she lived with different guys at various points. At one time, she had her own apartment, and we couldn't afford electricity, so we were going around with candles to light our way at night. But my belly was full every night. I had plenty of meatballs to eat. Just not our own home to live in. But it was okay because I was surrounded by a bunch of aunts and uncles and Italian culture. And one of the things, I remember my Zio Salvatore. Zio Salvatore was only about 10 years older than me, so he was probably a 15 or 16-year-old teenager at this time. But he was very, very musical. And he always brought his guitar at all the family gatherings. If we were at someone's house to celebrate something or to eat Sunday dinner, he always brought his guitar. And in the Italian culture, the louder and more boisterous you sing, the more applause you get. Oh, sole mio. Bravo, Jimmy. Bravo, Jimmy. Everybody was so proud of me. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter if you sounded bad or sounded good. It didn't matter at all. And I had lots of cousins named Angela. There were probably 247 of them. Not really that many. But see, there's a cool tradition in Italy. And even though I never got to meet my grandparents, they died when I was about 2 or 3 years old, my mom's parents. The tradition in Italy is to name your firstborn daughter after their grandmother. So my grandmother's name was Angela, and so I have 6 or 7 female cousins who are named Angela. And I think that's a really cool tradition that they have. I remember going to see all of my relatives were poor. They weren't homeless like we were, but they would make room in the corner of their 2-room or 3-room apartment to, not bedrooms, rooms, 2-room, 3-room apartment. The kitchen was one room, the bedroom, and the living room. But they would make space for us plus their own 2 or 3 kids, and we just spread out and found a place to stay. I remember this one place. We had to cross through these sheep paths to get to it. So you'd go through a gate and walk down a path with sheep all around you. And it was this old, probably several centuries old stone building. It was kind of cool looking, like you would see in a picture, a Norman Rockwell picture of Europe or something. But it was a very cool building, but it was obvious that they had brought water to this place after the fact. So as my aunt would be sitting there making meatballs on the stove, right next to the stove, separated only by a shower curtain, was the toilet. So you can imagine all these smells mixing together. The garlic of the frying meatballs and the processed meatballs that are coming out right next to the stove. But this was just part of life, and we were used to it. I still had, throughout all this time, I had this emptiness in my heart because of not having a father. Even though I had a father the first 5 years of my life, I wasn't close to him. All I remember is being afraid of him. My sister was the one who was the actress, though, because I think I was about 4 and my sister, was 3. And my mom tells this story that my dad picked me up and he said, "Do you love Daddy?" And I said, "No, I don't love Daddy." And he said, "Well, Santa Claus isn't going to bring you anything." And I said, "That's fine. I don't love you because you hurt Mommy." And then he picked up my sister and he said, "Do you love Daddy?" She was about a year younger than me. And she said, "No, I don't love Daddy because you hurt Mommy." And he said, "Santa Claus isn't going to bring you anything." And then she said, "I love you, Daddy." So I always had this emptiness in my heart, this father emptiness. And in Naples, it's a big Navy area for the U.S. Navy. There's a big base there, and we had lots of American friends. And there was one couple, George and Jean. And George was starting to fill this emptiness for me. They had 3 kids. They had George Jr., who was about my age, Karen, who was about my sister's age, and then they had Chris, who was a little baby at the time. And George played with me, he listened to me, he paid attention to me, he loved me and I loved him, and he was filling that need for me. My mom and Jean would often go to the store, and I don't know what women do when they go to the store. My wife likes to go for long periods of time. If she's going for one of the long trips, I'll usually bug out and say, "No, I'm not going," unless it's a shorter one. So Mom and Jean would go to the store and go shopping, and George would watch all 5 of us kids, his 3 and my 2. And as any of you who have had kids or had siblings will know, anytime you get more than one child together, there's bound to be a fight. And there was some kind of fight or argument that night. And we're all fighting and getting in trouble. And George comes in to stop it. And he says he's going to talk to each one of us individually to find out exactly what it was that had happened. And I was the first one that he was speaking to. So we went into the next room. He closed the door behind him. And the tears are pouring from my eyes because I hated getting in trouble. I feared authority. I'm 53 years old, and it's only been about the last 5 years that I finally have overcome this fear of any kind of authority. And he's wiping the tears from my eyes, and he's embracing me, and he's saying, "Jimmy, I know you didn't do anything. I just want to get down to to the bottom of what happened. And the other kids, they're banging on the door and they're saying, Jimmy didn't do it. Jimmy didn't do it. And he tells them to go away and go keep playing. And he says he knows I didn't do it. He just wants to get to the truth of what happened. And in that moment, George took my pants down and he violated me in a way that no little boy, no little girl, that nobody should be violated. I can't even explain to you the pain. It felt like my heart was torn in two. My spirit, my soul just felt like they were shattered. Here's this man I love, and I don't understand what's going on with this. George cleans me up, and we go back out, and he says, this will never happen again. And my 6-year-old self believed that. 6-year-olds are very easy to believe. They believe it when someone says that they're sorry. And I don't know exactly how many times it happened, but that was a lie about it being the last time. And between the time I can remember that first time, and I can remember the last time when I was about 8 or 9. And I know there was at least a dozen times in between, but I couldn't tell you to them. You know, one of the coping strategies we have as people is sometimes we kind of black out things that have happened to us. Well, when I was about 9, George moved away after that last time. He moved out of town, and I never saw him in my life again. And so you would think this was a secret that I just buried deep down, and I pushed it down, and it came out kind of in my stomach with a lot of tension and a lot of hurt and pain and confusion. And you know, when you're a kid, you think you're the only one that has been through something like that. And as I got older, as I became a teenager, that seed began to grow in me of hatred. I hated George, and I wanted to kill him. If he had still been in my life, maybe that was a blessing from God that he moved away, because I don't know what I would have done. When I hear things in the news about a wife who's been abused or someone who's been abused, and they go off the deep end and they kill their abuser, and then they end up in trouble and end up being in prison oftentimes for what they did, I understand their feeling. And see, all this time, I was a Christian. I can remember being a Christian, it seems like since I was 5 years old. I just feel like I've always known Christ and known about his saving grace. But when I was about 15 or 16 is when I started reading his word. And his word is what changes us when we read it and we obey it. And I came to places like Matthew 6:14, and this is out of the Amplified Version. For if you forgive others their trespasses, their reckless and willful sins, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, nurturing your hurt and anger with the result that it interferes with your relationship with God, then your Father will not forgive your trespasses. Ooh, that really sunk deep. See, I've discovered that the Christian faith is just like being a musician. If you want to become a better musician, you have to practice and get better. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're not just staying the same. And our Christian walk is the same way. We are saved by grace. But if we want to become a better Christian and grow more into what God has for us, we have to take everything in the Bible and we have to apply it in our lives. And hopefully we're becoming better and better. And I would read those passages like that about forgiveness, and I could forgive anybody. I could forgive my sister. My mom made so many mistakes, as all of us parents do. And I could forgive them. I could forgive friends who did something mean to me, enemies who did something mean to me. But I had a hard time being able to forgive George. But then I realized something. By not forgiving George, I wasn't hurting George. I was hurting me. And I had to take this step to be able to grow in my Christian walk. And at the age of 16, I made the decision to take that first step and to forgive George for what he had done. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not like the healing all took place all of a sudden overnight and everything was better and hunky-dory. No, it's a process. It was like a 1,000-mile journey. And that decision to forgive George was just the first step in that 1,000-mile journey. And now I'm on mile 976, and I can look back and I can't see the starting line anymore, but I can see the finish line. A lot of healing has taken place. Almost all of the healing has taken place, and there's just a little bit that still needs to heal. That's probably always going to be just a little bit there my entire life. But I can see the journey that I've taken. But when I was taking that first step, I could not see mile 976. It was too far away to be able to see it. Now, music came into my life at just the right time. See, I had no self-esteem, having not had a father growing up, and the abuse that happened with George. This was all before the age of 16. It was just something I had pushed down, and it was like a weed growing in my soul and spirit. And I wasn't good at anything. I wasn't good at sports. And so I was kind of a mama's boy. My mom was very overprotective and tried to keep us from falling or getting hurt all the time. And I didn't have the father side to balance that out. So I wasn't good at sports. I wasn't good at outdoor activities. And I remember kids calling me faggot, homo, all kinds of horrible names. And when you're that age and you already have this kind of secret like this, and you think you're the only one who's been through that, it's easy to internalize some of that and think maybe it's true what they're saying about me. But I was fortunate because on the first day of 7th grade, I had been looking forward to 7th grade all year, all summer long. I could not wait for 7th grade to start. And I knew that at the last period of 7th grade, that first day finally came. It was September of 1979. That first day of 7th grade finally came, and I knew that 7th period would be wonderful. It just seemed like it took forever for 7th period to get there. I had to go through lunch where one of the teachers was like digging in his nose with his handkerchief draped over his finger. And then 6th period came, and then 7th period. And I got to the door, and I opened the door. And then I saw her in the back of the room. I knew that it was meant to be. I could see every curve, even in 7th grade, every curve on her body. And I debated, do I run towards her and pick her up and embrace her, or do I take my time and saunter over there in a cool way? So I take the cool route, and I'm going over to her on the other side of the room, and she's not looking at me or anything. But as I get closer, I can smell her a little bit. Oh, it's definitely not like the meatballs. She smells kind of musty, but that's okay. It's 7th grade. And I reach down, and for the first time in my life, I pick up a saxophone. And it was life-changing for me, because you see this saxophone, you can't see the saxophone that I'm holding right now in my hands, but it's about 100 years old. And it's got dents in it, and it's got scratches, and it's been painted, and it's got paint peeling and lacquer peeling off of it. And there's spots where it just doesn't look very pretty. It has lived every second of its 100-year life. And that's what I was like with what I had been through. But God was able to take that And out of that ugly instrument, he was able to create a symphony. So just like my old saxophone represented my life, God redeems us. I love this passage out of Joel 2:25, and once again, this is out of the Amplified Version. And I will compensate you for the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the creeping locust, the stripping locust, and the gnawing locust, my great army which I sent among you. You have plenty to eat and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dealt wondrously with you. And my people shall never be put to shame. I tell you, it's been a blessing to know Christ, and He has redeemed those years for me. Now, I think that God puts people in our lives. My mom has made this mistake of always saying, I'm going to do it by myself. All I need is God. And although that is true, and there could be times where I've read of pastors who were put in prison for their faith and people who were put in prison and had no visitors and no one to rejoice and share with. And there are times when that happens, but most of the time, God puts people in our lives that are going to help us and encourage us. And I know for me, it's been mentors. There were a lot of men after the terrible thing that happened with George. There were other men who I looked up to as fathers and older brothers who poured into my life, who spoke God's word into my spirit and helped to bring that healing. For me, the education was a very important factor also. So I joined the Army band right out of high school, and I got married to my high school sweetheart. She wasn't the object I met in 7th grade, but I did meet her in high school, and we got married. I was 20 and she was 19, and I joined the Army shortly after that. It took me 10 years to earn my bachelor's degree, and then I didn't earn my master's degree until 2012, so I was 45 years old when I completed that one. The Lord has blessed me with courage, and of course my faith in Jesus Christ. There's kind of a secret. So I spent 10 years in the Army band. I want to tell you a little secret with finding a successful marriage. My wife and I have been married almost 34 years. And I can remember in high school, I would bring girls home, and I just knew that this is the one. This is the one. And I'd bring them home to meet my mom for dinner, because that's what all good Italian boys do. You bring the girl home for your mom to meet and give her approval. And afterwards I'd say, Mom, what did you think? Did you like her? I feel like she's the one. She's the one. And my mom would get this look of disgust on her face, and she'd say, No, Jimmy, she's not the one for you. And I started getting desperate. It's like, I think she's just going to say this no matter who I bring home. Jimmy, she's not the one for you. I just know in my heart she's not the one for you. And she was telling the truth. But my stubbornness, I would then try to prove that this girl was the one. And then a couple of months later, I'd realize it wasn't the case. When I brought Susan home, I was excited again. I still had a little bit of hope that maybe my mom would change her mind. And I said, Mom, what did you think about Susan? And she said, Jimmy, she's the one for you. I know it in my heart. And so I was confused. I said, Mom, how do you know? You just met her one time. How do you know that she's the one for me? After all these times, all these 6 or 8 other girls that you said she's not the one, now you're saying this is the one. And she said, Jimmy, I know she's the one for you, because when I asked her if she wanted some more lasagna, she said yes. So I had to continue to take steps to keep moving forward. And the message that I have for young people, in fact, if you know of a school that would like to have me come in, I'm transitioning from teaching to sharing this message full-time mainly with youth. So if you know of a place that might have me, then please get in touch with me or put me in touch with someone who could bring me in, because I want people to know that your now doesn't determine your future. Your past doesn't determine your future. With faith and with mentors and with education and with help and friends pushing you forward, then you can become successful. And I praise God for my 33 years of marriage, my 4 kids, they're all grown now. And we have 6 grandkids and 2 on the way. 1 due in December and 1 in February. And we're very excited about that.